Victoria 1, Manchester United 2, and honestly, that was one of the most infuriating games to watch as a Manchester United fan, because on the one hand, as a collective, I thought that we played pretty decently. I thought that tactically and in terms of our team shape, there is a lot of positives to take away from tonight's game. But individually, there is a lot to be desired. And I'll start with the positives, then I'll talk about the negatives. Starting with the positives, I think the fact that we actually controlled a game of football against a team away from home in Europe is a huge positive, because it's something that I've been crying out for as a Manchester United fan for a very long time. Take the emotion out of it, take the outrage out of it, and actually think about it. We dominated possession, we created more total chances, had more total shots, and they didn't have any tangible opportunities that they created from open play and from build-up. A lot of their chances came from mistakes that we made. Their goal literally came from Andre Onana passing them the ball and giving them a goal on a silver platter. So as far as I'm concerned, that is the biggest positive to take away from today's game, that this Almiron system can actually work. We may not have the personnel right now, and we may not have the quality right now, but there is a lot of promise to take away from tonight's performance from that aspect. And of course, we've got to talk about Amad Diallo, another standout performance from him. It wasn't a perfect performance, but definitely another good performance. He was at the epicenter of everything good for Manchester United today. The goal, the first goal especially, he's the reason we actually scored that. His directness and ability to get into the box and make things happen, but also his link-up play, his hold-up play, his creativity, his technical ability and security, and just the way that he retains possession for us in the middle of the park was so important tonight. So shout out to Amad Diallo. Shout out to Casemiro and Bruno. I thought they were okay in the midfield today. Not perfect, not great, but just okay. I thought that we were very poised in the middle of the park. The biggest issue for Manchester United today, and this is where we get into the negatives, was in the final third. The final third, there was no penetration, there was no directness, and I think a huge part of that is Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford today was absolutely awful. And he's not the reason that we nearly lost the game, because it was actually Andre Onana, who we'll talk about in a moment. But Marcus Rashford was awful. And I don't think we talk enough about Marcus Rashford, because he's been at the club for a very long time. He's 27 years old. He's on massive money. And at the end of the day, he should be in his prime right now. And we're still having debates. We're still having people outraged at the prospect of selling Marcus Rashford. There were reports earlier today suggesting that Marcus Rashford could be open for sale, that Manchester United are prepared to sell him for around 40 to 50 million pounds, and people were actually outraged as if we're talking about prime Cristiano Ronaldo. I could not believe the outrage I was seeing on social media today, because for me, I would take 50 million in a heartbeat for Marcus Rashford. But that's a separate issue that we can talk about in another video. Tonight, Marcus Rashford was awful, and I think it was yet another example as to why he needs to be moved on. We then got to talk about Andre Onana. Absolutely awful. He's had a great start to the season, and I think he's actually done a lot of good work recently for Manchester United, but he's undone it with a terrible error tonight. And I think a lot of the people who've already made their mind up about Andre Onana are beyond the point of no return after tonight. That was an absolutely calamitous mistake, and there was no need for it. Absolutely no need. In fact, if you go back and watch that goal, he could have just kicked it long, because he had two or three passing options that were all pretty much risky and were all pretty much off the cards. So he should have just went long. He should have just booted it out up the field, and for whatever reason, he decided to play the riskiest pass. And as a goalkeeper, you can see everything. You can see when there's a man on the person you're trying to pass the ball to. So there is no excuse. Andre Onana was absolutely terrible tonight, probably his worst game of the season, because he's been good this season, and I think this is going to undo all that good work. Can't really defend him. Another player I've got to talk about before I wrap up the video is Diego Dalot. He's a player that I've defended. He's a player that I've said, listen, he's playing out of position. He's playing a lot of games. He's burnt out. I've made a lot of excuses for Diego Dalot. But tonight, that ends. Because tonight he was playing in his natural position, and he is as bad, if not worse, as he's been all season long. And I can't defend that performance. So he was awful today. I've got nothing new to say about Diego Dalot. He has been atrocious, and he should be dropped, like I said in my previous video. So I'm interested to see what you guys think in the comments down below. Leave a like on the video if you want to support the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you are new. I really do appreciate all the new subscribers and the support on the channel. Another performance for Manchester United that brings us back down to reality. Despite getting the 3 points, there is still a lot of room for improvement. And there is a lot to take away from that game, both positively and negatively. But I think the biggest takeaway is that we don't have the profiles to play Almirum's system in the short term. And for me personally, I don't mind Almirum sticking with this system and us going through the teething and growth pains of him eventually overhauling the squad. What I don't want is Almirum reverting to hoofball, reverting to a 4-2-3-1 and being like Ten Hag or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or Jose or previous managers that we've seen who've come to Old Trafford, abandoned their principles, focused on short-term results, and then never really go back to their style of play. I don't want that to happen. I want Almirum to stick to his style of play, even if it means we're going to lose games, even if it means we're going to have games like today. Because for me, the long-term progression of Manchester United and the long-term development of an identity is far more important than short-term results. It's been your boy Triple M. Adios.